The new Mega Millions jackpot just became the second largest in history. So it's time for the lucky Florida winner to start celebrating, right? Well, maybe not. A lot of terrible things can happen when you win the lottery. Here are the top 10 things that Mega Millions winners absolutely hate about winning. Number 10. Their new friends hate them. Most people watching this have never been super rich. And that means you probably don't know that there's a lot of social politics when you're dealing with rich people. Ever heard the terms old money and new money? Those terms are important if you want to understand why lottery winners aren't really accepted by other rich people. See, old money describes people who were born into a family that's been wealthy for generations. These people have a certain way of handling their money. For example, the families often value education and family heirlooms. Think British aristocrat vibes. New money describes anyone who's rich, but only became that way recently. Old money people don't like new money. They see anyone newly rich as being a bit of a commoner. In other words, they think new money people aren't classy. Of course, that's not always true, but that view means people from old money often avoid being seen with new money people, like lottery winners. So that means lottery winners will just make friends with other new money people, right? Nope. New money people don't like lottery winners either. That's because anyone who has become rich recently got that way through hard work. They resent lottery winners because winning the lottery doesn't involve any work at all. Of course, it's not true that lottery winners are lazy. A lot of winners worked hard their whole life, even if it wasn't the work that made them rich. So there's no real reason for other rich people to hate lottery winners, but they do. And that can be pretty disappointing for a lottery winner who just wants to experience the good life. So, lottery winners can't make friends in high places. So they should just stick to their old friends, right? Well, number 9, they lose all their old friends, and sometimes their family too. Lottery winners find out pretty quick that friends and family don't stick by you through anything. Sure, they might be there when things are bad, but the real test of who your true friends are is hitting the jackpot. There are countless stories of lottery winners losing friends and family after winning the lottery. It turns out, everyone you're close to gets pretty angry when you don't split your money with them. Sure, some winners lose it all because they start partying too hard. That's what happened to Keith Goff, who won the lottery just a few months before his first child was born. The first thing he did was go down to the bar to celebrate. But unfortunately, even after the party ended, he didn't stop. He moved on from alcohol to drugs, and his young wife was forced to leave with their baby to make sure it had a normal childhood. Keith soon ended up in jail for selling drugs to feed his habit. But not everyone loses their friends and family because they've changed. Sometimes you do nothing wrong and still lose everyone. When Dave Dawes won almost $130 million, the first thing he did was to give his 30-year-old son, Michael, a whopping $2 million as a gift. There's no doubt that's incredibly generous. So, how did his son say thank you? He sued him. But why?
That's a good question.
See, Michael decided his dad was some kind of magical bank he could just take money from whenever he wanted. So, he quit his well-paying job and spent about $1.5 million from his dad's gift in under a month. He ran out of money, so his dad gave him more. Soon, that was gone too. But this time, his dad didn't want to give him any more because he was worried his son was throwing his life away. But Michael had other ideas. He told the court that his dad had promised he'd never want for anything again. Obviously, that's crazy. Most of us would set up a pretty perfect life with $2 million. Michael just seemed to want it all. He was also treating his friends differently because they weren't as rich as he was. Well, as rich as his dad. As if that wasn't bad enough, he verbally abused his stepmom at her own birthday party because she wouldn't give him another $7 million of his dad's money. You'll be glad to hear that the judge dismissed the case, saying that David had given Michael more than enough money, especially since he also paid off Michael's debt. But you can bet that relationship is pretty much destroyed now. And honestly, stories like this happen a lot to Mega Millions jackpot winners. Your family hating you for not giving them all your money is bad enough, but the problems that Mega Millions winners face start even before they get their money. Number 8. They're treated like criminals. I'll bet you didn't know that Mega Millions winners are interrogated before they are given their jackpot payout. That's right, they're treated like literal criminals for simply claiming the jackpot they rightfully won. This happens even after they've shown up to the lottery office in person with the winning ticket in their hand. And if you think I'm overreacting, that the whole thing is probably just an employee at the office that asks a few questions, you're wrong. There are law enforcement officials on hand to interview any winners of big payouts, like a jackpot. They'll be accompanied during the interrogation by security hired by the lottery. Obviously, they don't like to call the process an interrogation. They prefer to use the word interview. But I think if you're being questioned by the police so they can determine whether you're trying to steal millions of dollars, it's got to be called an interrogation, right? Just in case you ever win, we'll let you in on some of the things that'll come up. They'll typically ask you questions like where you bought the ticket, and whether you chose your own numbers or just went for a quick pick. The answers to these questions are recorded by lottery machines when you buy the ticket, and the information can be accessed by lottery officials thanks to the serial number on your ticket. So they know the answers. If you don't, they're going to assume you're lying about being the owner of the ticket. So make sure you remember the details about where and how you buy your ticket every single time, just in case. Think that's bad? Well, it's not the only time jackpot winners are treated like criminals. Number 7. They lose their right to privacy. You have a right to privacy. And yes, that is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can lose that right by committing certain crimes. Oh, or by becoming a lottery jackpot winner. There's no doubt that's a pretty shocking fact. You'll be glad to hear it's not universally true. There are countries around the world that allow you to stay anonymous if you win the lottery. But since the Mega Millions lottery is a US lottery, that doesn't really help you. In America, most states don't allow you to be anonymous if you won the lottery. In other words, you literally have to give up one of your human rights to get the money you won fair and square. Why do they do this in the first place? Well, splashing the face of a real-life jackpot winner all over the news is a great way to gain publicity for the lottery and get people buying tickets. But it doesn't help you as the jackpot winner at all. There are some ways around this. For example, you might be able to stay anonymous if you bought the ticket in a state that allows you to keep that right. But that could cost people a lot of money to travel. You can also set up a trust and use that to claim the prize, but people can still find out who the owner of the trust is. Plus, California doesn't allow that at all. The problem with all this is that it can totally ruin people's lives. If everyone knows who you are, total strangers will show up at your door or beg you on social media for money. Plus, the media is obsessed with lottery winners. That's what happened to John and Lisa Robinson. When they won, they insisted that they loved their home and had always dreamed of retiring in the house where they raised their kids. So they had no intention of buying a big mansion. But strangers kept knocking, and a convoy of media vans were camping outside. It got so bad that the police started patrolling their home. Eventually, they didn't feel safe anymore and were exhausted by all the people constantly trying to get a picture of them. So they were forced to move. Sure, it was lucky they had the cash to buy a beautiful home, but that wasn't what they wanted. And all Mega Millions winners who have to go public will experience what it's like to not be able to live by their own rules. Just take a look at record-breaking Powerball jackpot winner Edwin Castro. He won that gigantic $2.4 billion jackpot. but he's now forced to spend an estimated $21,000 per week on security. I don't know about you, that sounds like my idea of a nightmare. So I guess the next problem on this list isn't really a surprise. Number 6. They become paranoid. According to psychologists, one of the biggest problems that jackpot winners face is paranoia. They can quickly become paranoid about everyone and everything around them. But that's not so surprising, because once you have that much money, you literally can't trust anyone. We've already mentioned that you can lose family and friends at a rapid pace, but it's not easy to rebuild after that either. Callie Rogers won the lottery when she was just 16. And she says that the worst part was finding out that her friends weren't her friends. She trusted them, but mostly they were stabbing her in the back. She's grown up with kids now, but she says she still has anxiety every time she meets someone new. That's not surprising when she was buying drinks for people in bars, only to see later that they'd sold the stories she told them that night to the tabloids. But it's not just friends and family that betray you when you're a lottery winner. Just ask the winners of one of the biggest Mega Millions jackpots of all time. They won a whopping $1.5 billion jackpot and knew they needed help managing that money. And that's pretty smart. All experts advise you to hire experts to help out when you've never managed that kind of money before. They didn't know who to ask until they saw a man called the lottery lawyer on TV. His name was Jay Kurland, and everyone seemed to think he was the authority on managing a huge jackpot responsibly. So they hired him, paying a mind-blowing $200,000 for their first consultation with him, and another $50,000 per month after that. But even though his fees alone could have made him rich, that wasn't enough for him. He was stealing tons of cash from all his lottery winner clients to fund criminal activities run by his friends. I know, it's pretty dark. By the time he was finally caught, he'd already stolen an eye-watering $200 million from his clients. So the money seems to turn everyone against you, but it might turn you against yourself too. Number 5. They can lose meaning in life. Along with paranoia, the other thing psychologists say is common among jackpot winners is that they lose their sense of purpose. You'd think all that money opening up a world of possibilities would be a good thing. And sure, sometimes it does help people a lot, if it gives them the opportunity to pursue something they've always dreamed of but couldn't afford. But for a lot of winners, it just causes confusion. That's because they suddenly want for nothing. They don't need to work another day in their lives. And if that's true, what do they do with their life? You never ask that question when you're working hard all the time to afford basic things, like most people. You also don't think about how stressful it can be to manage hundreds of millions of dollars. A lot of winners find it exhausting, scary, and seriously stressful, especially when there are no clear answers about how to manage their wealth. That's probably why so many lottery winners turn to alcohol and drugs. It also explains why experts often advise winners to keep going to work, even if they hate their job, at least until they have a clear plan for what they're going to do with all their money. You want it to improve your life, not ruin it. But then again, they might not be able to avoid a disaster, even with a good plan. Number 4. Their chances of being the victim of a serious crime become much higher. This could come as a shock, but jackpot winners are a lot more likely to become the victim of a crime than the average person. All jackpot winners suddenly have a target on their back. But what kind of crimes are we talking about? The answer to that question isn't good. You're more likely to be scammed, robbed, or even worse if you have a jackpot in the bank. The statistics aren't good either. Some say that winning the lottery makes you 20% more likely to lose your life due to, well, unnatural causes. Why? Well, it's just the easiest way for the bad guys to get their hands on your money. Don't believe me? Let me give you some examples. A man named Abraham Shakespeare won the lottery. As if that wasn't lucky enough, he met a woman named Dee Dee not long after and he fell in love. Only it wasn't as lucky as he thought. His body was found not long after underneath a concrete slab. And yes, you've already guessed who did it. Gregory Birch lost his life to armed robbers who broke into his home looking for his money. And Yarouj Khan's brother found himself in a nightmare when he got a call that Yarouj was having a heart attack. But Yarouj had just won $1 million, so that heart attack seemed pretty suspicious to his brother, who arrived too late to save his life. It took him a while to convince police to investigate Yarouj's death, but when they did, they found the deadly poison cyanide in his blood. However, they never found the person that did it. That's a pretty terrifying reality that lottery winners face every day. But it might also explain the next thing on our list. Number 3. They're forced to plan for their own death. Before Mega Millions jackpot winners are even given their money, they have to plan for their own death. It sounds like a huge downer on a day that should be a celebration, right? So why does this happen? Well, if the winner chooses the annuity payments, the lottery insists on knowing who they should pay the money to in the event of the winner's death. It kinda makes sense. After the first payment, which they get immediately, there are 29 more payments. That means they need to live another 29 years to get all the money. That's a lot of time to accidentally meet your maker. So they need to choose a beneficiary to receive the payments in case that happens. They're allowed to choose any person or their estate that will receive the money. But lump sum winners aren't off the hook either. If you have a lump sum sitting in your estate and you suddenly perish, your family are gonna be slapped with a gigantic tax bill if you haven't planned correctly. It's called an estate tax or inheritance tax, depending on where you are, and it kicks in when the money passes on to the people you generously chose as the beneficiaries of your estate. Luckily, there is insurance that covers that tax, and it's definitely a good idea to look into that, even if it is a horrible thing to think about. There is one way to avoid all that, and it's coming up next on this list. Unfortunately, it's definitely not good. Number 2. They might find they missed their chance to get their hands on the money. There are loads of ways that jackpot winners can totally miss out on getting the money. Obviously, the first way is to lose the ticket. It's every lottery winner's nightmare. Loads of people have lost tickets in the past, or accidentally destroyed them, like the player in California who forgot her $26 million ticket was in her jeans pocket and accidentally destroyed it in the wash. Others have their tickets stolen. And this can come from unexpected places. In fact, store clerks stealing winning tickets is such a problem in America that the lottery has undercover agents constantly trying to catch them. I know, it sounds like a movie, but it's happening in real life. There are also more unique ways to miss out on becoming a multimillionaire. The young British couple Rachel Kennedy and Liam McCrohan thought they'd solved the problem of forgetting to buy tickets by setting up an online subscription that automatically bought a ticket with their numbers before every draw. So you can imagine how excited they were when their numbers came up in a draw for $228 million. Only there was a problem. A glitch on the website meant their automatic purchase never happened. In other words, they had no ticket. And that was the end of their impossible dream. But there's another way you can miss out that you might not even know is a thing. Check the back of your ticket and you'll probably see a date. That's actually an expiration date. If you don't claim your prize before that date, you won't get the money. If you think that's pretty rare, you're wrong. America misses out on claiming a whopping $2 billion every year. The biggest ever unclaimed ticket was worth $77 million. That was in 2011, which means even if you realized you had that ticket, you still couldn't claim the money now. We'll leave it up to you to decide if never getting the money is worse than the last thing Mega Millions winners hate about winning. Number 1. They almost always lose it all. If you think this is a myth, you're wrong. Lottery winners are more likely to lose everything than they are to live a happy life with all that money. In fact, an estimated 70% of winners lose absolutely everything. As if that wasn't bad enough, lottery winners are more likely to go bankrupt within the next 3 to 5 years than any other American at any point in their lives. It's a pretty shocking statistic. And a lot of that is, surprisingly, because winners give too much away. That makes them more vulnerable than rich people who earned money through their work. People are just less likely to ask for money that someone earned than money that someone won. And people who won the lottery often suffer from winner's guilt, so they're more likely to give family and friends everything they want. But it's also true that lottery winners aren't good at saving. Jackpot winners surveyed 10 years after winning had only saved an average of 16 cents on every dollar. That's not sustainable. A lot of winners end up even more broke and in debt than they were before winning. So, what do you think? Are you glad you didn't win the recent Mega Millions jackpot now? This has all seemed pretty hopeless. Want to know how to become a successful lottery winner? We've gathered together the best bits of advice from everyone's favorite money experts, the Shark Tank team. You definitely want to hear what they had to say.